Welcome to video 2 of the Hot Metal Fab instructional series. Today we're going to go over our 2019 to present rock sliders for Ford Rangers. These fit on 2019, 2020, 2021, and so on and so on. I just wanted to go over a few features of the rock sliders that we make. All of our rock sliders have a kick out at the back. We offer different options. Most of the sliders we build, we run the front tube up in and slant right into it. On special request, you can run this parallel. On the website, there's lots of different pictures and images. Send us an email of what you're looking for with your slider. But these sliders in particular, they have 3 different mounting areas. A lot of the other companies making Ranger sliders, they only go with 2. All the brackets on them are 3/16 steel. We do a forward gusset and a rear gusset on them now. We used to only do 1 gusset on these, but now we want to make them extra strong. This we refer to as our horseshoe tube, and this is our front main tube. The sliders come with a middle gusset. For an additional cost, you can get that gusset put in at an angle. Makes it look a little bit better. 1, 2, 3 brackets for connecting to the frame, and 1, 2 large gussets. Come on over with me. We'll give you a list of everything that you're going to need to install these, the tools, and a list of all the hardware that should come with them. So here's all the hardware that's going to arrive in the box. These are our flag nuts. You get a bolt, washer, and lock nut. These are to fish inside the frame so that you don't need a tool on the back. So you just put these in, and you crank your bolt down, and it works good. You're going to receive, for the passenger side, you're going to get 2 bolts with riv nuts on them. This long one right here is actually a riv nut installation tool. You can do it this way. It's a lot harder, but a lot of people don't have actual press tools to use these, so we send this with you just to make things a little bit easier on you. And the tools you're going to need are very simple also. A ratchet, a 9/16 socket, a 3/4 socket, 9/16 wrench, 19 millimeter or 3/4 wrench, and then 2 drill bits. This one's actually a 17/64 drill bit because these are just a scotch bigger than 1/2 inch. You can use a 1/2 inch drill bit and just ream it out. We have the proper size drill bit here. And then you want a smaller drill bit to drill your pilot hole first. It's easier to drill 2 holes than just drill 1 bit. These 7/16 drill bits, you can get them for pretty cheap at all Napa stores also. And then of course, a drill to turn your drill bits. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the bracketry that we have going on here. On the forward bracket, you have 3 different holes. The bottom 2 holes on the driver's side will actually go into holes that are on the frame. You just remove a cross member, bolt it up here, and then on this one, flag nut behind and here. On the rear bracket, you're going to use 3 flag nuts through existing holes on the frame. And then we have our horseshoe bracket here in the middle. The reason why we did this one this way was twofold. One, you can just put a floor jack on the bottom of this, jack it up, get it into place side to side, and then put these 2 bolts here. It's kind of a safety feature. Even though these are installed at your own risk, this still, once you get it on the vehicle and you get these bolts through, you put a safety nut on each side, it'll actually hold the slider in place while you're able to manipulate it back and forth to get it exactly where you want it. Let's move on over to the driver's side so we can get this install started. We'll give you the exact detailed instructions that you're going to need to install these. So lining the rock slider up on the driver's side is actually fairly easy. There's a skid plate right here that you remove. You're going to use the 2 holes and bolts from the vehicle right here that lines up with the front bracket. The middle bracket actually slides up against the wiring harness. You slide it between the wiring harness and up against the side of it here. And then the rear bracket is just going to line up with the holes in the frame. They're pretty big holes in the frame, so you should be able to just get it kind of where you need to do. The most important part is getting the rock slider lined up with these 2 holes. If you put a bolt in crooked, you're going to cross thread it. All right, we're going to get started with the step-by-step install now. So step 1, remove the skid plate. All right, from here, if you're doing it by yourself, you're definitely going to need a floor jack. Or if you have a couple buddies, they can kind of weasel it up there and put it in here. But we're going to do this with the 1-person method today. So just slide her on in.
Pro tip, use a mallet to hit the slider so you can line up bolts correctly.
All right, so now that our bolts thread in easy by hand, we're gonna want to put these guys in hand tight. All right, now on to the flag nuts. Remove your bolt so that you have your flag nut all separated. And we're gonna want to start with the back hole first. Right, now we need to remove our safety nut on the middle horseshoe bracket and actually put the washers and lock washers and all that on it.
Reinstall skid plate at this time.
Now that all of our bottom bolts are tight, we can tighten up our side bolts. Just tighten them as tight as I can. And then, now that we have all the side bolts, come through and fully tighten your horseshoe bolts. All right, and that's it. Install is done. All right, so that's the end of side one. Just make sure that you move all of your flag nuts into an area where they're not going to rub on anything or vibrate and drive your nuts down there. If you do hear some noises down there, you might need to wrap them in tape, tuck them in the frame a little bit better. That might take a little bit of time. And also a thing you need to remember is after you install them and you drive around for a week, recheck your bolts. Make sure those things are good and tight. You don't want to lose a slider on the freeway. All right, now that we're on to the passenger side, this side's a little bit more complex. We're gonna get the slider up, put our safety bolts in, and then mark our holes for where we have to drill and put the riv nuts in the frame. So when lining up your slider, you need to take notes from where your slider was on the other side, because this one can be installed forward to back a little bit. On this truck, the rear of the slider came in perfect with the bottom line on the vehicle right here. So another thing to note when placing the slider on this side is pull one of your flag nut bolts out and put it through all the holes that these are going to go through to make sure that everything lines up before you drill in your frame. If you have a floor jack while you're doing this, on this step I actually like to leave the jack in there because I can jack the vehicle up a little bit from the bottom of the frame just to get that much more room to make it a little bit easier on you. Now everybody has a different way to install and do riv nuts and even do center marking holes. I like to actually start with my large drill bit and I mark through the bracket with the large drill bit where my small hole is going to be. So this is on the front bracket here. There's 2 holes in the bottom that you're going to need to drill to install your riv nuts. So now we're on to drilling the riv nuts. You're going to drill the holes in the bottom of the front bracket. Use your big drill bit to mark through the holes. So mark where you're going to need to drill with your small drill bit. It's not going to actually drill a hole. All it's doing is marking where we need to drill. And then onto your small drill bit. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hammer these into the hole. Easy peasy. Unscrew the provided hardware with it. So, and right here what you're trying to accomplish is you need to hold the nut with a wrench, and then you have to turn the other end with your socket wrench to try to crush this in there. It is a lot easier to just go on Amazon and order a rivet gun that'll crush these. They're about $40–50, but if you don't want to spend that money, we can do it this way with the nut and bolt. I do highly recommend. A lot of people in the off-road industry their installs need these. So buying a tool would benefit you in the long run. So what you're gonna do, thread your nut all the way down to the shoulder and put it in. Make sure your two washers are between your riv nut and the nut at the bottom. And all you're putting those there is to make it so that it can slip and not bind. Because sometimes if you use just the nut directly on the riv nut, it's gonna wanna spin the riv nut in the frame. So now, we're just gonna wanna hold the bolt with the socket and turn these and try to spread it.
Remember, a riv nut tool might be easier for install.
And then back your bolt out. Take a look up inside, make sure you have a good crush on it. That crushed real nice and good. All right, now that we have the riv nuts drilled, it's time to actually install the rock slider. So put it back on your jack, put her back up into place, and repeat the same steps you did on the other side with the flag nuts and the safety bolts.
Head on over to our website to order your set. Link in description below.
All right, that's a wrap for the install video on the 2019 and up Ranger rock sliders. We'll leave a link in our description so that you can find them. There's a few different options, like I said at the beginning of the video. If you want dimple dyed top plates, if you want this tube a little bit different, or if you even want the outer tubes in a different arrangement, contact us via email or DM us on Instagram and you can find all the information there. So all in all, install time is about an hour. Remember, install at your own risk. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for our next video.